Psychological safety seems to be all the rage in today's workplace. Why do the clinically sounding term make such a splash in the corporate world? Is it another management fad that helps McKinsey and the likes sell plenty of presentations? Or is it a legit idea that helps people build better relationships, teams, and companies? My name is Jafar and this is the HR Diary. Today's episode will be divided into 5 different chapters, each with its corresponding timestamp below. Let's talk psychological safety. Big picture first. Ray Kurzweil, author of the book The Age of Spiritual Machines, claimed that the rate of technological progress is accelerating exponentially. For example, in the 20th century, people lived not through 100 years, but an equivalent of 2,000 years of technological progress in comparison with the 19th century. With the same logic, by the end of the 21st century, people will have lived through an equivalent of 20,000 years of technological progress. This number is completely and utterly mind-boggling. But at the same time, so are the evolving capabilities of artificial intelligence and the leaps we are making towards the artificial general intelligence. With the world changing at a breakneck speed, we can no longer rely on educational systems that prioritize rote memorization over critical thinking and problem solving. Authors and books will continue to inspire us, but will fail to guide us through the maze of the new challenges that the technology will pose. So, what can we do as individuals and as collectives to make sure that we stay relevant in the future? Well, the answer is both simple and complicated at the same time. Stephen Bartlett, founder of the Diary of a CEO, is adamant that in order to stay relevant in the future, we need to outfail the competition. That means we need to enter the experimentation lab, we need to test, fail, learn, adapt over and over again. Jeff Bezos has spoken openly about Amazon's graveyard of ideas, the failed experiments and the products that we have never heard about. But for hundreds of failed experiments, there will be one that not only will finance the graveyard, but will also secure the financial future of the company. Have a look at AWS. In today's business world, the way to stay relevant is to ensure that we experiment. Small and big failures alike are the currency of improvement. There are many levers that we can pull in order to shape the right organization with the right environment conducive of experimentation and failure. Starting from a very high level like company's culture, through the right incentive programs, up until the performance management and the right KPIs, and finally, the secret sauce of success, psychological safety. So, what is psychological safety? Let's go back to 2012. This is when Google decided to launch an internal major research to answer a deceptively simple question: what makes teams effective? Project was named Aristotle, honoring the Greek philosopher and his famous idea that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Over several years, the people analytics team at Google studied more than 180 high-performing teams, analyzing heaps of data such as team composition, gender balance, individual skills, motivation, background and education, personality traits, even how often the team members socialized after hours. Initially, the team assumed that the answer will lie in assembling the right individuals with the highest IQ, highest technical skills, and the best mix of personalities. However, even though they employed their entire analytical prowess, and it's Google we're talking about, they were unable to find the underlying pattern. After many iterations and constant experiments, they finally found out that who was on the team was far less important than how the people worked together. After 4 years of research, they answered the question, what makes teams effective? They published their findings both internally and externally, and they split them into 5 main categories for effectiveness. Category number 5. The team members need to understand how their work contributes to the entire organization. Category number 4, meaning. The work needs to be meaningful and important for the team members. Category number 3, structure and clarity. Team members need to have clear and set goals. Category number 2, dependability. Team members need to be reliable upon, deliver the quality of work on time. And then finally, the cornerstone, the fundament of the entire structure of team effectiveness, psychological safety. Amy Edmondson, author of the book The Fearless Organization, defines psychological safety as a belief that one will not be humiliated or punished for speaking up with questions, ideas, concerns, or mistakes. In her research, Edmondson discovered that in some patient care units, team members were more likely to discuss and report mistakes, while in other, they were fearing of retribution or consequences. The units where psychological safety was lacking were the units with, unfortunately, higher mortality rate because the teams were unable to discuss and address the mistakes in a prompt and timely manner. Another prime example of how lack of psychological safety can lead to disastrous consequences is Volkswagen's Dieselgate. Senior executives, and particularly then CEO Martin Winterkorn, were known for harsh criticism and intolerance to bad news. They have contributed to creating a culture of fear where people felt they cannot bring up bad news and technical limitations. So rather than admitting that with the current technology they were unable to meet legal standards for emissions, they cheated. They installed a software that manipulated the emission tests. The widespread deception cost Volkswagen billions, damaged its reputation, and was an example of how toxic environment can lead to unethical behaviors in an organization. But don't despair, there is something we can do about this. Psychological safety is a climate that can be nurtured on a team level. The lion's share of responsibility is with the leaders, but everyone plays a role. The below framework focuses on leaders. In the next chapter, we will discuss 5 practices for everyone. So what is the framework? The framework has 3 steps: setting the scene, encouraging involvement, and reacting constructively. Step 1. Set the stage. Spell it out clearly. Failure happens and the road ahead is uncertain. None of us can do this alone. That's why every voice matters. Flip the script of the mistakes. Mistakes are learning opportunities. And don't forget to shine a light on the why, what's at stake, and for whom. Step 2. Show some real vulnerability. Say it out loud. You don't have all the answers. Admit where the gaps are. Ask thoughtful questions, and here's the tricky part: actually listen. And when you mess up, own it. Step 3. Appreciate when people lean in, especially when they bring different opinions to the table. That's not a threat, that's gold. Remember, leaders set the climate. Now, let's talk about 5 different practices that each and every one of us can implement on a daily basis. Practice number 1. Listen to understand, not to reply. Think about it. How often do you listen to understand? We are a product of a performance-oriented culture where crisp rebuttals are testimonials to our intelligence. Instead, I invite you to create a different mental space. When someone speaks, hold on, create a space for curiosity, ask, tell me more, see the different shades of the thoughts that someone is painting. Practice number 2, stay present in the conversation. Stop your thoughts from drifting away. It is so easy to drift away during a conversation. Maybe you start thinking about what time you need to pick up your kids from school, or maybe you're thinking about that email you haven't answered yet. Practice number 3, confirm understanding, rephrase what you heard. This is a cornerstone of active listening. We often use the same words, but their meaning can shift subtly, or we simply have a completely different understanding of their meaning. This can be called jargon drift. Make sure you're on the same page, looking at the same paragraph and at the same sentence. Rephrase what you heard. Practice number 4, model a calm response. Press pause before replying. It's quite easy to get defensive. When someone criticizes my work or asks me a pointed question that derails the workshop that I'm conducting, I can very easily slip into fight or flight mode. Not very helpful in social context, especially when you're HR. What I practice then is I observe my first reaction. I feel that elevated heartbeat. I take a deep breath, and that deep breath is a pause because it lets me diffuse the emotion. And instead of reacting in a fight or flight mode, I can respond a bit more productively. And finally, practice number 5, very self-explanatory. Ditch the perfection. It's okay to say you don't know yet. When I hold workshops about psychological safety in the organization, I'm often challenged by senior leaders with questions like, how is it possible not to criticize anyone at work? Or should we then forget about high standards for performance? They fall prey of a common misconception that psychological safety is about being nice. It's not. You still should have productive disagreements. Psychological safety is not immunity to consequences. People understand they might get feedback when they're not meeting expectations. They understand that if because of industry changes or other financial problems, they might lose their jobs. It is not about being nice. But whenever they get together, they're not afraid to speak up. Because you see, here's the truth. At work, we constantly run small, tiny calculations in our heads. Should I speak up or should I stay quiet? Psychological safety removes the fear from that equation. It lets everyone join the path of continuous learning and failing, because failure is the currency for improvement. Thanks for staying with me. See you next week.